To understand what I'm about to tell you, you're going to have to believe in the impossible. Hi there, hello, what's up? Back at it again with another 5-minute crap. Back at it again with another try not to laugh. Back at it again with another react video. Alright, look, I want to talk about this because I like superhero stuff, alright? Spider-Man, easily my favorite superhero. But we're talking about DC specifically, it's the Flash. And I think everything surrounding it and the lore is very cool. Although, I'm not a writer, but some of the stuff that they do is not great, you know? And I'm sure there's a bunch of videos on this topic, but today I throw my two elephants in the ring and I'll talk about super speed and its problems in general, kind of. I want to preface everything I say by saying this, right? This is my opinion, right? If you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's fine. I don't care. And also, it's fine to judge something in good faith. There's a difference between being like, oh my god, that's so stupid, let's go beat them up and call them a fucking nerd. Or being like, hey, I think there's something wrong with this video. Here's why I think there's something wrong with this video. There's a difference between the two things. Judgment in good faith is fine. Also, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of different shows. So I'm going to try and list what these shows are here. Just so you know, right? You've been warned. You've been warned. You've been warned. Now, I think the main issue with speedsters is inconsistent scaling. Basically, the writer shows the speedster being super fast, but then they don't keep that speed consistent throughout the entire show. An example being Sonic the Hedgehog. In the first movie, they have this bar scene where Sonic does a time in a bottle scene. Basically, the character is moving so insanely fast that time has basically stood still for that character. Now, in concept, I think the time in a bottle scenes are very cool, but if it's introduced, then the antagonists need to be scaled accordingly, or a reason needs to be provided for why the speedster has been scaled down. Because if Sonic's able to move this fast that no one's able to detect him, and he's just like able to take his time, well, but if he's able to take as long as he did in this scene, just messing around with the place and just moving around, then in this scene in the second movie should never have happened. Sure, Sonic was confuzzled as to why Knuckles was there, and so Knuckles would have been able to land a lucky punch, but Knuckles doesn't move as fast as Sonic does in any way. So even if Sonic wouldn't have been able to win, he sure as hell wouldn't have been able to lose. Or at least, he would have been able to run away very easily. You ever tried swatting a fly? For their size, they move pretty fast, right? But if you time your reaction just right, you're able to just swat the shit out of the fly. Now imagine if that fly had actual intelligence and you couldn't even perceive it properly, right? You would never be able to touch this fly. That's basically the fight between Knuckles and Sonic. Sure, Sonic doesn't know how to fight and Knuckles is insanely strong, but Sonic would have been able to hit Knuckles at least 100 different times before Knuckles would have been able to even hit him once. Or Sonic would have been able to run away extremely easily. But when Sonic does run away, it's in a cop car that he can beat in a race with only 1 foot. But it's to progress the story, so that's fine. For this example, there are any number of reasons as to why what happened. Sonic wasn't thinking properly. Knuckles is way stronger than I give him credit for. But it still makes me go, And I love the Sonic movies, right? Even Sonic 3. But it is best to avoid these movements whenever possible. Whenever you make a fictional work, you've basically made a contract between you and the audience saying this is what's true. And your audience chooses to accept it. They accept that this is what's true given this world. And depending on how it's written, your audience is willing to give you the benefit of the doubt on stuff that kind of starts to bend or curve around that truth for the sake of the story. As long as there's adequate reasoning behind it. Just the reason won't suffice because your audience can choose not to accept it. It has to make sense given the rules within that world. For example, video games where health regenerates, right? Obviously, it never makes sense for somebody to just be able to regenerate health like that so consistently. But the players are willing to accept that very easily because they want the game to happen. The point at which the writer starts to lose the audience changes depending on the type of media and the type of story that's being told. But for me, it's not just one big thing that loses me. It's a buildup of a lot of small things over a period of time that just loses me completely. Didn't mean to get sidetracked there. I'll talk more about it later. But now on to the second example. The first episode of... I'm sure many people have talked about it, and again, big spoilers here, but it's about the death of Red Rush. And I think there's two big reasons as to how it happened shouldn't have happened. Red Rush attacked Omni-Man when he should have known how strong Omni-Man was, and Omni-Man shouldn't have been able to scratch him based off of what we've seen. Again, the same thing I was saying about Sonic, right? In the very brief moment that Red Rush was shown on screen, he was incredibly powerful. He was able to evacuate multiple civilians to safe locations in seconds. He was able to beat and tie up a villain in like a second, whilst also traveling to and from his girlfriend without her even realizing. And he himself admitted that he constantly perceives the world as fast as he moves. Now, I know what I say next is going to sound scary, but bear with me, and let's do some math real quick. Wait, just some simple, real quick math. It should help prove a point that I have. And we'll just do one scene, the scene of Red Rush saving civilians, and this should help my point, hopefully, right? Okay. All right, so let's break this down, right? He saves 8 people. He does so in about 6 to 7 trips. I could say 7, but let's just say 6 for now. So 8 people. Now, looking it up on Google Maps, they seemed like they were in a place called Lafayette Square. I was like looking in front of the White House. So they seem to be on the left side. So I'll say he took them to a street corner around here, and using Google Maps, I can measure the distance between the 2 points. That's a little bit longer than I thought it was. It's about 700 feet, right? I could be more precise, but I don't really give any cow shits about precision right now. Just an estimate ballpark number is fine. So 6 trips traveling back and forth, that's 1,400 feet. For the first trip, I'll say he was at the White House. So I'll say just 300 feet for that, plus 700 feet going to the actual street corner. That's 1,000 feet, so I'll just say 1,000 feet for that one. So it seemed like he saved all these people in about 2 seconds. So adding all this up, we get he traveled about 8,000 feet in approximately 2 seconds, and dividing it by 2 gives us 4,000 feet each second. So now let us convert this number, 4,000 feet each second, to miles per hour, just so we can actually contextualize it a little bit better. So there's about 3,600 seconds in an hour, so 4,000 times 3,600 gives us 14,400,000 feet per hour, right? And there's about 5,280 feet in a mile. So if you just go ahead and divide this by 5,280 feet, 2,727 miles per hour. This is faster than Mach 3, right? This is 3 times faster than the speed of sound. This is like approaching the speed of a bullet. No, this is faster than a bullet. This is like approaching the speeds of the fastest bullets. You get what I mean? This is really fast. This isn't insanely fast in the context of like, oh, the stuff can go faster. It's not even close to the speed of light in terms of speed, but the speed of light is insanely fast, so we don't even need to consider that right now. This by itself on Earth terms is really fast. You cannot see a bullet, right? It's just not feasibly possible, right? But let's using the average speed of a human as an approximation, right? The average top speed of a human is about 28 miles per hour. So let's go ahead and divide this by 28, and we get 99. This is 99. So Red Rush experiences the world 90 times faster than regular humans. This is a video at 99 times speed. That is a video at 99 times speed. Hopefully, that kind of puts it into perspective of what I'm trying to say about how fast Red Rush perceives the world and moves in that speed, in that world. Does that sentence make sense? I'm sure you got it. If Red Rush is constantly moving at this speed and perceiving the world at this speed, then this scene should never have happened. It doesn't matter what kind of reflexes Omni-Man has, he shouldn't have just been able to catch Red Rush's hand like that. It just isn't possible. A counterpoint to this is that people are saying in Season 2, which I haven't watched yet, but in Season 2, Omni-Man moves really, really fast, like 2.5 times the speed of light, which is a really fast speed. But, and I think my point still stands here, is that based off of what we were shown in episode 1, he shouldn't have been able to kill Red Rush in that fashion. Maybe if Omni-Man was shown to move at the same speed as Red Rush, then that scene would have more weight to it. But with what was shown in that scene, it's not possible. Does that make sense? This isn't equatable to just swatting a fly really, really fast, because humans can move as fast as a fly can. It's just that some flies are really small, and humans lack the precise muscle control when moving an arm that fast. Yes, Omni-Man is really, 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 really powerful, and I am fully aware of that. It's just that with what was shown in this episode, this scene shouldn't have happened, because Red Rush would have at least been able to run away. Like, Omni-Man wasn't shown moving really fast, and when he caught Red Rush's hand, he just seemed to be moving at normal speed. Like, it didn't seem to show him to have been sped up or anything like that. So, it's just not possible with what was shown. But all this math and all this analysis means nothing, right? Invincible is a really good show, and Red Rush is a really well-written character for the short amount of time that he was on screen anyway. Like, his death isn't a massive leap in logic, so long as you don't go so long as you don't do as in-depth of an analysis as I have done. Like, his death isn't that big of a leap in logic. He's not a pivotal character. His death was important for the story to progress, and he died fighting the strongest being on that planet. His death is well within the bounds of what I am willing to accept, given the rules that the writer has put down for this universe. So, I'm sure you're like, then why'd you choose this, you freaking moron? Wasting my time with all this math and all this dumb analysis and all that. But relax, I'll get to it. Let's just use this to breathe in and out for a few seconds as we get to the entire reason why this video exists. Now, Red Rush's death is a good example of bending the rules to progress the story. What's not a good example of this is the show The CW Flash. Now, I actually really did enjoy the first few seasons of this show, like a lot, but like there were too many bends in the show and there was too much stuff happening that after a certain point, I just kind of stopped caring about it completely. Now, there's a lot of problems with the show, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to go over a few quick examples really quickly here and there, just so I can get to the other parts of the video and not have to edit something way longer than it should be. Alright, villain number 1, Captain Cold. So, Barry should have been able to take down Captain Cold very easily. Basically, in the first season, episode 4, there's this villain that gets a cold gun, and it makes Barry move slow. Ooh. But even before Captain Cold got the freeze gun, Barry should have been able to take down Captain Cold very easily. Basically, in the first scene where we see Captain Cold, aka Leonard Snart, him and his gang are trying to rob a truck for something, money maybe, I'm not sure. But then Barry comes in and they show how fast he is. He just pow, 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 takes down all of them. And then he just, boom, vanishes. Like, where'd he go? And then he comes back, and then a cop gets shot, and then he just lets them get away, like bust their tires or something like that, or just get some handcuffs and handcuff some of them. Don't just watch them leave. But then, yes, the civilian's injured, so the civilian is priority, but he still couldn't move fast enough to do something. Now, this scene I'll give to Barry. Like, Captain Cold was in a theater area and shooting civilians, so Barry's priority was saving the civilians and not actually taking down Captain Cold. And when he was trying to save Joe, he did get shot by the cold gun, so maybe his speed was dampened a little bit. And here, when he's trying to save the person, I forget, theater staff, when he's trying to save the theater staff, he was actually moving slow because of the cold gun, so he wasn't able to save him. And when that person died, he wasn't able to think about looking for Snart because he was taken off his game because, well, a person died in front of him. And so, like, he wasn't thinking properly. New superhero jitters, as I like to call it. But then we have this train scene here. Basically, Captain Cold shoots at the floor of a train, and that causes the train's wheels to crash, which causes the train to crash. But they show how fast Barry is in the scene. They show him saving all the civilians off the train. They show him moving so fast at a certain point where, like, gravity doesn't really have an effect on him. So they show him moving extremely fast. But then Barry just gets shot. Like, number one, how is Captain Cold able to get there so fast? He jumped off the second the train started crashing, so it must have been like 100 yards away or something like that, right? It's like, did he just book it the second he jumped off to where he thought Barry would be? And two, why was Barry just resting there? Shouldn't he at least make sure there's nobody around before resting? Yes, he's tired from saving all those people, but still, just make sure there's nobody around, or catch the villain at least before you start resting. Bottom line, he should have been able to beat Captain Cold in this episode, but I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt here. Be like, Barry just got his powers, and he doesn't know how superheroing works correctly yet. On to the next villain, Savitar. Savitar is the big bad villain in season 3, and there were just so many things that shouldn't have happened in this season that did happen. Like, when they were introducing Savitar, they showed him just being obscenely faster than Barry. And I understand why the writers did this. They wanted to show that Savitar was the worst speedster that Barry has yet to face. They wanted to show him being even worse than Reverse Flash and Zoom. But once they did this, they had no choice but to severely nerf Savitar, because otherwise any fight that Barry has with Savitar will automatically win no matter what. But the writers nerfing Savitar automatically undoes just this introduction they gave him in the beginning. Like, he was moving so fast that it seemed like he was around the entire city at the same time. Like Barry himself says
he's appearing and reappearing all over the city at once, and that's impossible.
So just this introduction undercuts what happens in the rest of the season. Background first, right? Savitar is basically a time remnant of Barry that Barry created when he was facing Savitar. Now, this is some a time remnant is basically a speedster goes a second into the past, which basically makes two of them exist at the same time. And the reason why time remnancy is bullshit in this instance of the show is basically because of many reasons. But one thing is, if a show introduces time travel, they have to be consistent with how time travel works in that world. But to explain all of the inconsistencies that popped up with Savitar, all they said was, the more you mess with time travel, the less the rules apply to you. Which is just bullshit. I mean, it's a reason, but it's a very stupid one. So Savitar's big plan is that he will kill Iris, Barry's girlfriend, to show Barry how much more powerful he is. And then when Barry fights Savitar, he will have to make multiple time remnants, and Savitar will kill all of the time remnants except for one, and that time remnant will then become Savitar, because that time remnant will be so sad, I guess, that he wasn't treated as a Barry by his friends, and that he's treated as something lesser than or something. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, this plan is stupid just because of the amount of flaws that are inherent within this plan. If Barry knows that a time remnant of his becomes Savitar, then why make a time remnant to fight Savitar? Or if he does make a time remnant, the only thing Barry has to do is just treat that time remnant like a person and like an actual Barry and tell his friends to do the same, or just put the time remnant in a vault, in a meta-dampening vault, or just, since that time remnant is Barry, not become evil, because he is Barry. But what's stupider than Savitar's plan is how Team Flash went about trying to stop Savitar. Like, they had so many different avenues that they just didn't take at all. Like, one thing they have is like a superpower dampener. So why don't they just put Iris in a superpowering dampener vault and just keep her there until the threat on her life is past? Or one thing they could have done is that HR, Harrison Wells from a different Earth, sorry, I don't have time to get into that right now, but basically he said to just move Iris to somewhere private on Earth. And Barry's reasoning for not doing that is because Savitar would look everywhere on Earth to find Iris. But another thing they could have done is just move Iris to a different dimension and not tell Barry. Like Cisco has that ability to move in between dimensions. So you can just put her in a different dimension to keep her safe that way. Another dumb thing they include in the show is that whatever Barry knows, Savitar will also know. So they try to inhibit Barry from having long-term memories, which backfires and erases his memory, but that also erases Savitar's memory, which is just stupid. But the reason why they do this is because they want Killer Frost to come back and help them. Side note on Killer Frost, she is an alter ego of Caitlin, who's evil. Not a lot of time to get into it, sorry. But basically, she is a part of Caitlin, and Caitlin is a member of Team Flash, but Killer Frost is evil and has cold flowers. But also, Killer Frost should have never been able to escape Star Labs. Quick background, Caitlin has a necklace that stops Killer Frost from taking over, but Caitlin got severely injured and Killer Frost had healing abilities, so they had to take off the necklace off of Caitlin so that Killer Frost could take over and actually heal herself, aka Caitlin as well. Killer Frost takes over, some shenanigans happen, and then Flash shows up and pushes her away. Killer Frost makes an ice wall between her and Flash, and then she just disappears. But there is a near 0% chance that she just would have been able to disappear like that. One, Barry just watches her make the ice wall instead of stopping her and putting her in a superpower dampening vault. And two, Barry phases through the ice wall after like 2 seconds and she's just gone. Like how is she able to move that fast? Like at this point, Barry's able to move very, very fast, like 2,000 miles per hour easily, and she's just gone. Where'd she go? How was she able to move that fast? How was she just able to disappear like that? She's not Batman. She can't do that. Or maybe she. But yeah, back to the memories. Killer Frost basically still has Caitlin's memories, and so she knows medical stuff, and so she knows how to bring back Barry's memories, and she does this so that Savitar can have his memories back as well. And Savitar helped make Wally. Wally's another speedster, but because Savitar lost his memories, he was never able to make Wally, and so Wally doesn't have superpowers, which is also just stupid. Okay, I need to fully explain why this memory thing is stupid, right? Savitar is a future version of Barry, so everything Barry knows, Savitar also knows. So far, so good. Barry losing his memories would cause one of two things to happen. Either Savitar ceases to exist, or it will have absolutely no effect on Savitar. The second one is one that makes sense to me. The first one is one that doesn't make complete sense, but one that I'm willing to accept. So, why would it have no effect on Savitar? Savitar is a future version of Barry. So everything Barry experienced, Savitar has already experienced. If Barry got a cut on his arm, Savitar wouldn't also have a cut on his arm. Savitar would have a scar of where that cut was. Same thing here is Savitar would have already experienced getting his memory back. So Wally should have never lost his speed because Savitar should have never lost his memories. The only person that should have been affected in this instance is Barry because Barry is the present and Savitar is the future. Or the reason why Savitar should have ceased to exist is because if Barry lost his memories, then he would never become Savitar. So Savitar would have never been able to go back into the past to make Wally a speedster. This also wouldn't make sense for the same reasons that I explained before, but it would still be acceptable. But Savitar shouldn't have been able to lose his memories and still be in the current timeline, because if he lost his memories in the present, then why would future him go back into the past? That is the present. But somehow, disregarding all the memory stuff, something stupider even happened. So Killer Frost was at Star Labs helping Barry get his memories back. Barry was able to get his memories back, and with the help of Wally, was able to take out a fire. They took out the fire at night, right? The next day, they showed everybody at Star Labs, and Killer Frost was still there. That meant one of two things happened. Either Killer Frost stayed the night at Star Labs, or she left Star Labs and came back the next morning, all just so to tell Team Flash that they wouldn't be able to beat Savitar. But why would she do that? Why would she still be there until the next morning? The show set up a shot that showed that it was morning. If they had just taken that shot away, then the audience could still assume that it was nighttime, and it would be kind of plausible as to why
Killer Frost was still there. Or Killer Frost should have just disappeared, because maybe taking out the fire was a hectic situation, and the people at Star Labs weren't able to account for Killer Frost, which just allowed her to slip away. That would be kind of plausible. But no, not only was Killer Frost there until the next morning, they also just let her get away, which is just mind-boggling, because why let her get away? Even Joe was saying they shouldn't let her get away. Sure, a part of her is Caitlyn, so maybe Team Flash didn't want to fight that part, but also a part of her is Killer Frost, and very evil. So why let her get away to cause more harm? They don't have to kill her, they just put her in a meta-dampening vault until they can cure her, or something like that. But no, they just let her get away. I mean, the only reason I can assume that the writers did this is so that Killer Frost can have her redemption moment in the season finale, but there's much more logical reasons for her to escape than just letting her get away.
Okay, so now I'll just skip ahead to the last episode of the season, and this episode is just mwah. Okay, so HR used the piece of Savitar's suit to find out where Savitar is. Okay, sure, yeah, that can happen, but why not tell anybody else? I mean, I understand not telling Barry, but why not at least tell Cisco so that he can teleport you away once you save Iris? But then when he does save Iris, the piece magnetizes to the suit after he saves Iris. Why didn't it magnetize immediately once he entered the building? Why didn't Savitar have any cameras around the house? Why wasn't Iris in a more secure location? Why did Savitar make Killer Frost go after them instead of himself? He has super speed, but Killer Frost goes after them, and HR and Iris hit a dead end. Which, how? HR found his way into the warehouse. How did he just forget all of the directions he took to get there? Then they use some kind of technology that HR has to make Iris look like HR and to make HR look like Iris. Which, sure. But then a Killer Frost catches up to them and blasts Iris and takes HR with her instead, which why not also just take Iris with you as well? I mean, I understand not killing Iris, but Iris still looks like HR at this point, so why not just at least take that person with you as well? Because that person is a part of Team Flash and is a valuable hostage. Okay, so Team Flash knows when and where Savitar would kill Iris because Savitar told them, so that Barry would be in despair and not being able to stab Savitar despite having all this information. But the Team Flash has a gun that could theoretically put Savitar into a Speed Force prison. That gun doesn't work because Savitar has
calcified Speed Force energy.
A sentence that means absolutely nothing, aka the Philosopher's Stone, and he's able to kill Iris, who's actually HR. If they knew when and where Savitar was going to kill Iris, why not just place a bunch of power dampeners around the area? And where was Wally in the scene? Why wasn't he there to whisk Iris away while Barry was fighting Savitar? And where were all the other speedsters to help? But Savitar kills Iris, who is actually HR, which doesn't really make sense because Savitar knows that HR lives, and so if HR died, Savitar would have known that because he's future Barry, and so he would have seen that coming. But disregarding that, right? Why doesn't Savitar just try to kill Iris again? Because he knows where Iris is, because he has Barry's memories. But no, he doesn't do that. Instead, he decides to change the Speed Force gun and use it to shoot himself with it to disperse himself throughout all of time before the Paradox has time to catch up with him, which also doesn't make sense because the paradox would happen instantaneously because it is time. Why would time need time itself to make itself happen? But let's say, right, Savitar killed HR, which actually saved Iris, so Barry isn't able to become Savitar. In this case, though, Savitar wouldn't have been able to kill HR either because Savitar would have never have existed in order to kill HR. The classic grandfather paradox. So he kidnaps Cisco to make the Speed Force gun into the Speed Force splicer and tells Cisco that if he doesn't do it, he's going to kill Killer Frost, which is just a stupid threat because why wouldn't Cisco just tell Killer Frost what Savitar told him? And why does Killer Frost believe that Savitar wouldn't betray her? Savitar killed his own fiance. Why the fuck would he care about Killer Frost? But then we get to the final battle, and this scene makes me so mad. There's no way that Killer Frost was able to kill a speedster. There's just no chance of that happening. Sure, she's powerful, but this is a speedster who hunts down other speedsters. Oh yeah, this speedster is basically the Speed Force's speedster, who the Speed Force uses to hunt down with speedsters who mess with time too much.
basically an incarnation of death that we see even Barry struggling with. And here we see the speedster easily dodging the ice bullets from Killer Frost. I mean, sure, maybe the speedster was focused on Savitar, and so Killer Frost got lucky, but still, how is she even able to shoot ice that fast? There's just no way that the speedster was able to die because of Killer Frost. But then we just get this gem of a line from Savitar.
The one thing Black Flash can't fight. Cold.
But then Caitlin shoots Savitar with the Speed Force Splicer, which is actually a skeleton key that Cisco made, which frees a speedster that was inside of the Speed Force prison, Jay Garrick. But then Team Flash shows up and big speed fight happens. And oh, there's Wally. And Savitar just uses a single lightning bolt to take down all 3 speedsters at once, which, sure, but then instead of Savitar trying to escape, he goes back to the clearing just to kill Cisco. Cisco and Gypsy were already in the clearing fighting Killer Frost, and Savitar comes back and knocks down Gypsy, but Gypsy isn't incapacitated, she's just knocked down. She's still watching Savitar get ready to kill Cisco, and she just does nothing. She does nothing just so Killer Frost can have her redemption moment. And she hits Savitar with a ice beam, which knocks Savitar back and saves Cisco. Ooh, Killer Frost isn't really all that evil. Yay! But why did Savitar return to the clearing? Like, there was no reason to do so. But anyway, Barry returns to the clearing and Savitar easily decks him, right? And then Savitar tells Barry that he's going to kill everybody he loves. And Barry gets angry and somehow vibrates Savitar out of the suit. And then he easily beats Savitar, which, how? Firstly, since Savitar has Barry's memories, he should have seen that coming and been able to stop it. Secondly, it's not said that the suit makes the speedster faster. Thirdly, where did this increase in speed come from? The entire reason why HR died is because Barry wasn't fast enough to stop Savitar. So how did that just happen all of a sudden? But Barry defeats Savitar and decides, oh, he's not going to kill Savitar. And he just turns his back on him. Why would Barry do that? Why not knock him out? Or just put metacuffs on him to dampen his speed? Do something. Why turn his back on the big bad villain? But then obviously Savitar tries to kill Barry, but is stopped because Iris shoots Savitar in the back with a gun, which, no. Barry can easily dodge bullets. Savitar should be able to do so even more easily. So the fastest speedster in the universe at this point, beaten by a gun? Really? A gun? It just doesn't compute because it doesn't compute. I mean, sure, Savitar was focused on killing Barry, so maybe he was caught off guard. But really, the fastest speedster at this point, just beaten by a gun. Third thing I want to talk about, flash time. Really long. Dude, once they introduced flash time, then that was it. They made Barry too powerful. Like, flash time is such an incredibly powerful thing that just it existing kind of makes any fight in which he's not fighting a speedster meaningless. Basically, the premise of this episode is that there's a terrorist group that makes a nuclear bomb go off, and Barry can stop it. He enters into flash time, which is basically he's moving so fast that time slows to a crawl. The show has done other time in a bottle moments before, but this one is just kind of insane. The way Barry decides to solve the problem is by using a Speed Force lightning bolt to counteract the energy in the nuclear bomb, basically canceling it out. I will say, in execution and concept, this episode is really interesting. It just makes the Flash so powerful. Alright, look, I'm sorry, but I will need to math on y'all again. I know, I really shouldn't, but I just need to put into numbers how insane this speed is, alright? Oh, caveat, I am not a scientist, alright? So I did some research online, and I'm pretty sure what I'm saying is correct, but also, I could be off, so just keep that in mind, okay? So first, our parameters. 1, how long was he in flash time? 2, how fast was he moving in flash time? 3, how long was he, relatively speaking, in flash time? Now, this is going to be based off of this number here, but it's not the same number as this number here, okay? Okay, so
Number one, how long was he in flash time? Based off of what I've gleaned online, it takes about a millisecond for all the reactions within a nuclear core to take place. And then it takes another millisecond for all that energy to spread out a couple meters. So I'll say he was in flash time for about 2 milliseconds. So number two, right? How fast was he moving in flash time? So they showed him moving at normal human speed and talking with people in flash time, but they also showed scenes where he was moving extra fast to travel places, such as him going back and forth in between Star Labs and the bomb to figure out how to defuse the bomb. And the bomb was at an airstrip, so I'd say like going from Star Labs to bomb, like downtown area, to an airstrip, I think it's safe to say like that distance is like 10 miles specifically. So one trip to Star Labs to talk with Harry, one trip back to bomb to talk with Caitlin, one trip back to Star Labs to figure out how to defuse the bomb and talk with Iris, not important. And then one trip back through the Speed Force to throw Speed Force bolt at bomb to defuse bomb. So all these numbers, 10, 10, 10, and I'd say this is at least 10. I mean, if he moved through the Speed Force, maybe he shrunk down the distance between the two places a little bit, but they've never mentioned that actually happening. So I'll still say 10. Because honestly, it might even be a little bit longer because he had to run through the Speed Force. I don't know. I'll just say 10 just so we're not running into any weird physics numbers. So a total of 40 miles. Now, third, how long was he, relatively speaking, in flash time? So this is like how long was he in flash time using our normal human perception. I'll say the number, then I think you'll understand. I think he was in flash time for about 2 hours, maybe one. Actually, no. I think it's fair to say 1 hour. We don't know how long it took, so at least 1 hour, maybe 2. But just for simplicity's sake, I'll keep it down to 1 hour. Now, let's figure out and do the math here, okay? So he traveled 40 miles in 2 milliseconds. There's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So if we just multiply this number by 500, we should get the miles in seconds. So 40 times 500 equals 20,000 miles a second. Oh, this is already a big number, but just again to contextualize it, let's convert this to miles per hour, all right? So again, 3,600 seconds in an hour. So multiply this by 3,600 and we get 72 million miles per hour. 72 million miles per hour. Dude, that's such a big number. This is 9% the speed of light. This is an insane number. He goes zoom so fast. Like he moves so fast. This is insane. So he stretched 2 milliseconds to about an hour, right? That's like stretching 1 second to 500 hours. That's 20 days right there. So obviously he's not able to move at these speeds for super long. Like, he was only in flash time for 2 milliseconds. He wasn't moving at 72 million miles per hour for an hour, only 2 milliseconds. And by the time it hit the 2 millisecond mark, he was already tired. Like, he was already dead tired. He probably wouldn't be able to even reach another millisecond no matter how hard he tried. But the mere fact that he got up to 72 million miles per hour is broken. Like, any fight from here on out is useless. He's just way too overpowered. Because on average, it takes about 400 milliseconds for a normal human to blink. He can stretch that up to 200 hours, relatively speaking. Again, not the same thing. But while you're in the middle of blinking, he can punch you hundreds of times without you even having time to register what's happening. Like, he go fast. Like, he go zoom so fast. He go like really. This is big number, that's a huge number. He goes zoom so fast. It's insane. He goes zoom really fast. Like, I can't put it to words how it's insane. He's fast. He's really fast. Okay? Which is why this should never have happened. or this should never have happened, or this should never have happened. But this was perfect. This was an actually good use of all his powers. But this should definitely haven't happened. Words, you know what I'm trying to say. Now, there are other examples that I could pull up, but I don't want to scrounge through the entire show. So, no. On to the next thing. Now, the next two things I'll be talking about is an episode I really enjoyed and the show's finale. If I'm going to talk about The Flash, I should at least talk about the show finale, just for the cohesiveness of my own mind. And I really did enjoy this show for a while there. Like, this show, I really enjoyed watching every new season that came out for quite a bit. I think I truly did enjoy the show up until season 5, I believe. And so I should at least talk about something I enjoyed from the show. Just to be fair.
Now, a good episode was when Cisco was leaving. The villain was so-so, but the overall mood of the story and the actual episode was pretty good. It is later seasons of The Flash, but I would argue that the writers actually managed to do this episode really well. Basically, Cisco was scared of being stagnant and being at the same place doing the same thing all the time, and so he decided to leave Central City, which is basically the hub for Team Flash, and get a job at Argus. He didn't want to stop growing and changing, which I believe is a respectable fear. The villain is someone who isn't really a villain, I guess. Like, she just wants to give money to people who need it, but she does it in such a nonsensical and roundabout way. Not important. I'm trying to compliment the show right now. Basically, her superpower is making people happy and have fun. The underlying conflict for this episode is that after Cisco announces that he's leaving, he's sad that people aren't sad to see him leave. Not the greatest conflict, but gets the job done. But, like, the overall mood of this episode is good, and it's just a fun vibe. I really enjoyed watching it. Like, it's a very good nod to the first season and the earlier episodes of the show, and it just hits with, like, a bunch of nostalgia. The series of events goes as such. The villain is stealing something, and Barry and Cisco hop on over to try and stop them. Cisco gets whammied by a fun beam and is momentarily incapacitated, and the villain gets away. Barry locates the villain and is going out to chase her, but Cisco is in goofy fun mode and messes with Barry's suit, which causes Barry to crash into a van. Barry gets jumped by the villain and is basically hit with the drugs and goes back to Star Labs. This scene is really fun just because everybody is just enjoying themselves and having a fun time. We even have Barry breakdancing. It's just nice. Like, Chester comes in and he's not even knowing what's happening, but he starts breakdancing with Barry just infected by the mood of the inside the room. It's just like, just happy. But Chester cures Barry and Cisco, and after this, Barry, Cisco, and Caitlin have a talk, and they solve all their problems. Then, Barry and Cisco get the villain and stop a blimp from crashing. Barry did move insanely fast, but hey, looking at the episode by itself, it was really good, and I enjoyed it. Cisco just basically handing over his role as tech support to Chester was really touching, and seeing him reminisce about everything he's been through throughout the show just really hit me in the feels. Then they have a good time at the loft for Cisco's goodbye party, and this was just such a fun scene to watch. It felt like the actors were actually having fun in the moment. It was awesome. It was nice just seeing everybody be happy and have fun and not so moody and we need to save Central City. He's gonna kill everybody I love. I have to get faster. And not a single run, Barry, run. It was just nice. Now, the B plot with Iris and Camilla and the ending stuff with Cecile, I couldn't care less about, but the rest of the episode, I actually really enjoyed, especially for somebody who's really enjoyed the first few seasons of the show. This episode was just such great homage to the show, and I just really like it, okay? I feel like I should say some nice stuff about the show to counteract all the dissing I've done. Now, they almost ended the show on such a good note. Only in this first episode, though. Basically, Barry gets sent into the past. He goes to a police station to figure out what's happened and to get some help. He finds out that it's the exact day his mom has died. He leaves the police station and accidentally finds his parents. He gets knocked down by a red blur onto the street, and his parents come over to save him. He wakes up in the hospital with his parents taking care of him, and not wanting to disrupt the timeline, he tries to leave, but his parents force him to have some lunch with him. He leaves after lunch and he meets Eobard Thawne. Him and Eobard get a drink, as you do, just getting a drink with your biggest enemy. It's no big deal. But Eobard basically tells Barry that he's here to kill child Barry. After that, Barry goes back to his parents, say goodbye to them one last time, and in a way, is able to hear his parents say I love you back to him one last time as well. And then after that, he goes back to his neighborhood to try and stop Eobard to not kill child Barry for Eobard's own good. Then they do the fight that started it all in the room where it happened, and we finally see it from the point of view of this future Flash and him stopping his past self from changing the future and the entire fight. Then Barry gets his child self out of there and Eobard kills his mother. Afterwards, Eobard loses his speed and Barry comes back to talk with him. Eobard realizes that him killing Barry's mother was a fixed point in time, and Barry tells Eobard about how he was finally able to accept this tragedy, and Barry gets pulled away in time. This would have been such a fantastic episode to end on, because we basically come full circle right back to the beginning of the show. It's a good loop. He was finally able to get the closure he needed from his parents. We see him still trying to stop Eobard to save Eobard, which just shows him being merciful to his biggest enemy. And we finally see the lead up to the big fight at the house in the room where it happened. It was really nice seeing this fight again because we've seen it from so many different perspectives so far, except for this one. We saw it at the beginning with Boyberry in the series beginning. We saw it at the end of season 1 Flash. We saw it at the end of season 2 Flash with him actually changing the past. And then we saw it with beginning of season 3 Flash with him changing the past again, but now we finally see it with series finale Flash, which even if some of the stuff that Barry has been through is stupid, he's still been through a lot, and we see that he's the one that stops his past self from changing the timeline. Then finally we get to this part here where he confronts Eobard, and this is just such a satisfying scene.
And today brought me the peace I've been looking for ever since. I have you to thank for that, Eobard.
Barry was able to honestly confront Eobard and tell him that he was finally able to accept this tragedy that's been haunting him for so long, and that it was thanks to Eobard that he was able to accept this finally. He actually honestly thanks Eobard for this, and he beats him. This is him beating him. What else could it be? He finally beat Eobard. Eobard no longer has any control over him. He was finally able to get the closure that he needed for his parents' death. He beat Eobard, this big bad evil dude. That was the entire reason this show happened. He finally beat him completely. So why didn't they just end it there? This is such a satisfying, like he beat the big bad guy completely. Like, oh, even if there are many other questions that could be answered, this is already just such a good place to end it on. It's really nice. It's such a satisfying ending. It's why, even if they had to do other stuff, why didn't they make this the last episode instead? Why not just do it then? There's a B plot that I haven't mentioned yet. The episode opens up with them showing Eddie Thawne in the year 2049. The thing that brought Barry to the past was the trapped negative Speed Force. I think they trapped it in season 8, which is the last season. But this stone takes a hold of Joey in the past, and after Barry says goodbye to his parents, he has to beat Joe that's possessed without hurting him too much. And when he beats Joe, the crystal disappears. The episode ends with a lightning bolt hitting Eddie, and Eddie finds a file that shows he's been dead this whole time. Ooh. Bah! Okay, so there's a lot of stuff happening in these last few episodes, so I'll just try my best to give a very brief overview of everything that's happening. So, in the present, Team Flash is trying to figure out where Barry went, and while Iris is chilling at her newspaper place, Allegra, a member of Team Flash, gets attacked by somebody they don't show on camera. Allegra gets knocked out, and they take her back to Star Labs. Mark, don't know who that is, insults Keone, a fused Caitlin, and a dead Frost about how she saved civilians earlier, which hurts her feelings. Then Mark talks with Chester and does some evil stuff. Then he attacks Cecile and Iris and knocks out Cecile, and we find out that Mark is possessed by the negative Speed Force. Ooh. The embodiment of the Speed Force comes and knocks back Mark. Mark escapes. Side note, I gotta say that the Speed Force is kind of mean for looking exactly like Barry's mother. Like, Barry's mother is dead, and the Speed Force is basically constantly reminding Barry of that fact. Just seems kind of mean. Anyway, Speed Force talks with Keone, and we find out Keone is a goddess, which... What the f***? Huh? Caitlyn plus Frost in one body, no god. Caitlyn plus dead Frost in one body makes goddess. How? Their powers aren't even ice-based. It just... Besides the point. Anyway, they find out where Mark is, and Keone goes there to stop him. Then Keone finds Mark, and the negative Speed Force says that the only way to stop the possession is to remove the stone embedded inside Mark's hand, and the only way to remove the stone is to kill Mark. Now, how do you think Keone, a goddess who just has powers that make no sense at all, saves Mark? A. Cut off Mark's hand. B. Kill Mark. C. Knock out Mark. Or D. Trap Mark in a prison. If you guessed C, knock out Mark, that's wrong. It's way too simple and easy. If you guessed A, cut off Mark's hand, again, you're completely wrong. That's way too simple and easy. Obviously, the only choice she had in this situation was to kill him. Yeah, just like with a snap of her fingers, turn him into dust and then revive him back from there. Yeah, instead of removing the stone from Mark, she removed Mark from the stone. Yeah, that's the simplest and most efficient way to do it. No questions here. But that just removes all stakes from the show. I mean, at this point, everyone is stupid powerful. I mean, Allegra can just teleport around. But the ability to revive people from the dead, any battle from this point on has no meaning because they can just come back to life. The stakes from the show were entirely removed. Anyway, the stone disappears and Barry reappears back at Star Labs. Iris tells everybody that the baby's coming. Oh yeah, she's pregnant. Oh. And they go to the hospital. While at the hospital, Keone reveals that she's not connected to just one element or one force, but she's connected to all the elements and all the forces, which, sure, and Barry gets re-kidnapped by the negative Speed Force. While all this is happening, Eddie Thawne goes to the police station to figure out why someone who looks just like him is dead. He doesn't have much answers, and he starts walking around outside just screaming, "Who are you? Who are you?" Then he goes to the cemetery and starts digging out the grave with his name written on it. He turns out the grave is empty, and a bullet hole appears where he shot himself previously. He digs out the bullet, and blood starts seeping out, and he remembers who he is. Oh yeah, I don't think I explained who this guy is yet. Basically, Eddie was a guy in season 1 who was Iris's fiance, and was the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather of Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash. In the season 1 finale battle between Eobard and Barry, Eobard is beating Barry, and Eddie decides to shoot himself to erase Eobard from existence and save Barry's life. Okay, now back to episode 3 of the finale. In the present, the Speed Force says that Barry is headed to the year 2049, and that if Speed Force dies, then the entire timeline will be destroyed, which, sure, then the Speed Force just kind of disappears very anticlimactically. The team tries to project Cecile's consciousness into her future body to help Barry, which, sure, Cecile does it, but then she's not able to do it because she realizes that her future self is never at home, is too busy fighting crime. This makes her really sad, and she needs a pep talk from Chester to be able to do it now properly again. In 2049, at the gravesite, an officer that was with Eddie when he was digging up his own corpse gets sucked into a portal, never to be seen again. Then Eddie goes to Star Labs and realizes that their first Flash still came back to life even after Eddie sacrificed himself, which leads him to thinking that his sacrifice was for nothing. Then he meets future Team Flash, and Nora, Barry's daughter, gets possessed by the negative Speed Force, and she talks with Eddie very evilly. Then talks with herself by talking to the negative Speed Force, but like the negative Speed Force is the thing that's possessing her, so there's no need to talk to its own self. I mean, I talk to myself all the time, That's only because I'm crazy, really. Anyway, Barry shows up in 2049 and Negative Speed Force Nora tries to kill Barry and is saved by Eddie. And Barry takes himself and Eddie to Eddie's house. Not sure where this is actually. Then Barry and Eddie talk and Eddie suddenly starts turning evil. Then Barry has to fight Negative Speed Force Nora and Barry loses. Then Cecile just shows up out of nowhere and saves the day. I mean, she has mind powers, so I guess that makes sense. Then Eddie talks with Iris and realizes that Iris has moved on and doesn't really want to marry him anymore. Eddie becomes mad and walks off and Iris just lets him. I mean, the guy that came back from the dead, she just lets him leave. Sure. Anyway, the Negative Speed Force just caused the timeline to fracture, and we end the episode with Eddie just opening up a portal to somewhere. Okay, how the hell does the Negative Speed Force work? If it's also just a Speed Force, then shouldn't the regular Speed Force just be able to bring people back from the dead? And if Team Flash captured the Negative Speed Force last season, how is it able to just escape? And if it's still in crystal form, then obviously it isn't completely free, so how is it able to just fracture the entire timeline? Also, shouldn't the regular Speed Force just be as powerful because the Negative Speed Force is just the Speed Force but negative? It's like 1 and -1 having the same weight just on opposite sides and they cancel each other out. Anyway, on to episode 4 of the season finale, and finally we're in the last episode, but the ending to this episode is just the episode opens up with all the previous speedsters coming back to life. We got Zoom, Savitar, Godspeed, and Reverse Flash. Which, shouldn't the Reverse Flash look like Eobard Thawne instead of Harrison Wells? I mean, he shapeshifted into Harrison Wells in season 1, but that doesn't mean he is Harrison Wells. Not important. Anyway, Eddie walks down the stairs and gives a bland speech that all their powers combined can beat the Flash, which they all agree to, obviously. Then we cut to Barry and Iris at the hospital. Then Eddie shows up with flowers? Doesn't matter. Anyway, we're hit with this banger of a line.
Run, Barry. Run.
Which just makes me go, ugh. Anyway, Eddie and Barry go do battle stuff, and Eddie beats Barry. Then Barry's team comes to his rescue. Then Eddie reveals that he also has a team, and this leads to the series finale battle, which just sucks so much. Here's why. At least Reverse Flash, Godspeed, and Eddie can enter Flash time. So if anybody other than a speedster fights them, then they win immediately. But okay, Cecile fights Godspeed, and she's just able to suddenly fly from out of nowhere. Like, that came straight out of the middle field. Like, what the hell? Anyway, Godspeed makes a bunch of clones. Cecile just kind of pushes her hands away and they all go down, and then Cecile just kind of does a mind trick to incapacitate Godspeed, which again, even without Flash time, Godspeed can still easily beat Cecile. Like, make more copies of himself and overwhelm her. He obviously doesn't care about the timeline, or just hand knife her. He most definitely can get close to her without her even having time to think. Anyway, then Nora and Savitar fight, and Savitar is able to grab Nora and stab her through the stomach. But no, not really, because Nora is just able to vibrate her midsection, and then she just speeds up behind Savitar and stabs him. Wait, huh? Savitar was fast enough to grab her, and now you're suddenly telling me that he's so slow that she can get out of his grasp and get behind him without him even reacting and just stab him? Huh? Next, we have Reverse Flash at Star Labs. I don't know why he decided to be here instead of fighting the Flash, the man who he hates more than anything in the entire world and was willing to destroy the entire timeline just to kill Child Barry. No, instead he shows up at Star Labs to kill Chester for some reason. Then, instead of just doing handstand through chest, he instead does lightning. But like, to throw lightning, don't they have to be moving fast? I don't know, doesn't matter. But then Allegra just teleports in and blasts him, which knocks him down, which sure, he was caught off guard, I guess. But then he gets up, and instead of just stabbing her then, he does a short monologue, and then when she gets up, he doesn't attack her, he just lets her do an energy blast, and whoop, he's incapacitated. Then we have Keone and Mark fighting Zoom, and Mark does absolutely nothing. He didn't even need to be there. And the big fight here is that Zoom just runs in a circle and throws lightning, and Keone is just somehow able to grab that lightning and throw it right back at him, which sure, and Zoom doesn't really try to dodge the lightning, he just gets hit by it, and whoop, that's it, that's the entire fight. The biggest villain of season 2 just gets done like that. Then finally over to Eddie and Barry, and Eddie is about to beat Barry with a lightning saber, a lightsaber, no, because that would make Yoda angry. It's a lightning saber. But then Jay Garrick, a speedster from another universe, just shows up and just absorbs Eddie's speed. Huh? Sure, they didn't show Jay on camera, but Eddie is facing the direction that Jay Garrick came from. And Eddie's a speedster, so he couldn't have just snuck up upon him. And also, how is he just able to absorb Eddie's speed? Sure, Jay explains that he learned that off screen, but Jay uses the regular speed force. So wouldn't absorbing the negative speed force cause something bad to happen? Like something really, really bad? Like the speed force wasn't able to handle the negative speed force. Anyway, Eddie just decides he needs to absorb more speed, so he goes back into the negative speed force, and all the other speedsters just kind of disappear as well. I guess they go back to the negative speed force and just kind of die. Doesn't matter. Barry knows that Eddie going back to the negative speed force to absorb more negative speed force energy is bad because Eddie won't be able to handle that much negative speed force energy, and so Eddie will overload and die. Barry doesn't know whether he should try and save Eddie, and then he just kind of snaps at Mark, which sure, Barry's under a lot of stress with the entire timeline unraveling, but the sentences that he says aren't really connected. Like, I can't explain why, but it just kind of feels off. Anyway, Keone of all people, or should I say gods, just gives Barry the solution and tells Barry that he should just change Eddie's point of view and show him that the universe is all about balance, which just makes me so mad because Keone has no right to tell Barry what to do. Yes, she's a goddess, but she's basically the newest character in the show. She wasn't there when Barry's mother died, not there when they first fought Thawne, not there when Barry kind of got trapped in a world filled with Nazis, not there when they had to fight Zoom, not there when Barry's father died, not there when he had to fight Savitar and Barry had to live with the thought of the love of his life, Iris died, not there when HR died, the best Harrison Wells, not there when they fought the Thinker, or when Barry's future daughter Nora died in his arms, or when they fought Godspeed, or when they fought Reverse Flash. Again, not there when Barry was told he would die in Crisis a few years beforehand, and he was willing to sacrifice his own life to save the entire multiverse, or when a close friend of his, the Green Arrow, sacrificed his own life in Barry's stead, or when he had to deal with the guilt of people sacrificing their own lives for his own, and he thought it was unfair that he got to live his own life while all these people were dead. She wasn't there for any of that. Keone just basically appeared in season 9. She's only been with the team for 7 months. So in terms of human emotions, she's just basically a newborn child. I'm even willing to give her a very mature toddler. Even if she's a goddess, she hasn't experienced what Barry's experienced. Maybe because she hasn't experienced what Barry's gone through, she's able to give like unique input on what Barry should do. But still, Barry has no reason to listen to her. It would have meant more if what Keone had said came from literally any other character. Holy dude, with all the times Barry needed a pep talk from Iris, I thought for sure the writers would choose her for this. And this is a time where it would actually make the most sense. She has been with Barry since the beginning, and she knows what he's been through. She was also Eddie's fiance, so I feel like she should have some input in this. But no, instead they chose Keone, a character I couldn't give two about, and who really knows nothing about Eddie. Anyway, disregarding the rant, Keone just somehow teleports Barry into the negative speed force, and he attacks Eddie to stop him from absorbing negative speed force energy. After this initial hit, he doesn't hit Eddie at all, and Eddie just proceeds to beat the snot out of Barry. Then all of a sudden, Eddie just decides to be good. Eddie decides to be the avatar of the negative speed force. Eddie and Barry shake hands and everything good. I don't understand the negative speed force, because wouldn't existence just be like torture for Eddie? I mean, Barry said that the negative speed force was like the incarnation of evil, which already doesn't make any sense, because that's like saying an electron is evil or gravity is evil. No, it's just a force that exists. And also, if it does have feelings, why would it not have a mortal form like the regular speed force does? And why does it want to spread throughout the universe? And what does that even mean? Okay, even if it is evil, wouldn't Eddie always be having an internal struggle with himself all the time? Like, wouldn't the negative speed force just keep on telling Eddie to kill Barry? Or even, why does the negative speed force just choose another avatar? Like somebody actually evil. Anyway, Team Flash at the hospital waiting for Iris to have the baby. And no, Timeless Wells, I don't explain, but he's the time god, shows up and tells Keone that it's time for her to ascend. Baby born, Keone ascends and brings Caitlin back to life. Sure. Joey proposes to Cecile, cool, and they have a party. Then the episode ends with Barry running on the Ferris airstrip, a place where he first ran in season 1, and him sharing his power with 3 other people. Which just... Nah, I mean, there was never a conflict in the show where Barry thought his power shouldn't be shared with other people. And also, the audience doesn't know anything about these 3 people. Barry just chose 3 random people to share his powers with, or even worse, did he stalk these people before he chose them? And if so, how many people did he stalk before he landed on these 3 people? Also, why did we never see or even hear any mention of these people with all the time travel that's been happening in the show? Like, nary a peep about any of them. I mean, we did see one of them in the time travel episode with Bart and Nora, but we only saw her for a few seconds, and she was just a regular person then. Now, I will say, to the show's credit, this finale is very interesting in concept. I feel like if they did some stuff differently here and there, it could have been a semi-decent finale. First, right, everything was too rushed. I think it's fine to have a 13-episode season, especially since it's the finale, but it felt like the actual 4-episode finale was very disjointed from the rest of the season. Usually, in the seasons, there's a build-up. In season 1, it was figuring out who killed Barry's mom. In season 2, it was figuring out who Zoom was. In season 3, it had like 2 arcs, but it had one through thread connecting the 2 things. The finale for The Flash was built on the ending of the last season, but it just kind of happened. Like, the stuff with Eddie had no impact just because it happened too quickly. The switch in Eddie to become good, then go back to become evil, happened too quickly, and it came out of nowhere. Like, the finale villain could have been anybody, and he would have felt the same. Also, Eddie was only the villain for like actually half an episode. Second, right, stuff just happened. Like, they just wanted there to be tension for no reason. Like, the stuff with Cecile, I couldn't care less about her problems. And her problems were resolved within the span of like 20 minutes. It's the finale. I don't think they should be doing B-plot stuff now. Or if they are doing B-plot stuff, it should be to close down a secondary storyline or stuff like that. Especially the stuff with Keone. There was no intrinsic character development. We just had the Speed Force show and be like, whoop, you're a goddess. And then Keone was like, whoop, I'm a goddess. And then that was it. There was no actual development there. And like, I already talked about it, but like her giving advice to Barry was just completely unwarranted. Thirdly, right, the finale fight was just terrible. I'm not talking about it in terms of CGI. I'm talking about the actual fight. Like, the matchups that happened and the stuff that actually happened within the fights just didn't make any sense. It was too short, it was anticlimactic, and it was very confusing. It's not that they didn't stick the landing, it's that they got hit by a bus before they could even jump. Another thing to the show's credit is that making Eddie the villain was a very interesting thing. The guy who made the ultimate sacrifice becoming what he sacrificed himself for. Very intriguing. And they almost drew a nice parallel here when Eddie was beating up Barry and how similar he was in becoming to the Reverse Flash.
I always win, Flash!
But he kind of lost weight very quickly because this is like the first time that Barry and Eddie really fought. So Eddie's saying, I always win, Flash, just kind of lost weight very, very quickly. I think if they introduced Eddie in the first episode of the season and then they slowly built up the change towards like the 7th episode is when he actually became evil, and then he actually did something that's evil instead of him just being like, oh, I'm evil now, and him actually doing something good instead of him just being like, well, guess I'm good now, it would have been better. Again, interesting concept, but in terms of execution, definitely could have been better. All right, now, super speed is a very hard superpower to get right. I will be talking about it in like more sciencey terms and stuff like that. Again, reiterating what I said before, I do have the habit of saying stuff from a place of confidence while being like 1,000% unbelievably wrong. So feel free to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Although I did some research and I feel like what I'm saying is correct enough to where I'm right. But one of the things you have to account for with super speed is acceleration. I'm really sorry, but I'll have to math on y'all again for a quick moment. Again, this is just to try and prove a point here, okay? So acceleration, a speedster capable of moving inhumanly fast also has a body that's inhumanly strong. So don't you know that feeling when you're in a car and you move forward too quickly and you feel yourself jerked back into your seat, or the brake is pressed too quickly and you feel yourself jerked forward a little bit? So like, that's just moving at relatively slow speeds, like 60 miles per hour to like 50 miles per hour in like a second, right? But let's say for a speedster, let's say they went from 0 miles per hour to 1,000 miles per hour in 0.1 seconds. Now, this is 1,000 miles per hour is fast,
But in terms of like speedsters, this is like relatively slow in terms of speedster stuff and all that. Right. So we have our parameters here. So back a little bit of background knowledge. A single G is the force the Earth puts upon you when you're falling. So 1 G equals 9.8 meters per second, right? People usually round up to 10, but just for consistency, I'm gonna use a good old 9.8 because this is how I did the math already. So since we're doing meters per second, let's go ahead and convert this to meters per second. So 1,000 miles per hour, 2 meters per second gives us 447 meters per second. Now let's go ahead and divide this by 0.1 seconds, which is the length of time, which this gives us 4,470 meters per second. Let's go ahead and divide this number by a single G, which is 9.8. So divided by 9.8. Now this gives us 456. That's 456 G's, right? Apologies, this is meters per second squared. Gotta keep your units correct, am I right? Anyway, 456 G's. That's the amount of force that you feel if you go from 0 to 1,000 miles per hour in 0.1 seconds. Again, this might seem like it's fast, but in terms of speedsters, not really. Now, the average human can withstand about 4 to 6 G's for short amounts of time before falling unconscious. A trained fighter pilot can withstand about 10 G's. So this speedster is experiencing 45 times what a trained fighter pilot can handle, right? So they obviously need a body capable of withstanding that. Now, let's take this number, and assuming that the average mass of a human in North America is about 80 kilograms, like 180 something pounds. So, and plug it into this equation, G equals force divided by 80 kilograms divided by 9.8, and solving for force, so multiply both sides by 80 times 9.8. Solving for this equation gives us 357,000 newtons. This is the amount of force your legs would have to This is the amount of force that your legs would have to output to reach this speed. That's a lot of force, basically. So now if you go back and we do everything we just did for Barry and Flash time, I don't want to bore you with all the math. I already did it off screen. So this would be, he would be experiencing 1.6 billion G's. And his legs would have to produce 1.2 trillion newtons. 1.2 trillion newtons worth of force. His legs would have to produce that much. Like if Barry kicked anything at this speed, that thing would turn into dust. Like that thing would just be pulverized immediately. The stronger nuclear bombs, give or take a few billion, can produce about 5 billion newtons. A kick from the Flash is 250 times stronger than a nuclear bomb. So the reason I'm making this comparison is it doesn't matter if he's not able to consistently move at 72 million miles per hour. The mere fact that he can produce that much output means that any kick that he gives is just broken, completely broken. Or even using this example right here, right? 357,000 newtons is also insanely powerful. Like a bullet, like the force a bullet imparts upon impact is about 1,000 newtons. So if you just divide 357,000 divided by 1,000, we get 357. So this gives us 357, right? Which at this speed, yes, again, as I'm saying, it is really fast, but in terms of speedsters, not really all that fast. This is really, really fast, but this, not really all that fast. So 357 times stronger than a bullet. A single kick is 357 357 times stronger than a bullet. Yes, a bullet is much smaller, so the amount of force that's actually acting upon is much narrower, so it's able to impart more devastation on that single point, if that makes sense what I'm trying to say here. But again, a kick is 357 times stronger than that. So it's like, so the area that this kick, so even if we're trying to compare it to a bullet, right, the area that this thing can actually affect is 357 times like wider, if that makes sense, than this bullet. I think I'm doing the math right there. So like really, really strong, really, really powerful. The reason for all this is to be like, your body has to be capable of withstanding that much force. You, like in the Flash's case, his body has to be capable of withstanding 1.6 billion G's. And his legs need to output 1.2 trillion newtons worth of force. Or in the much weaker example, the speedster's body has to be capable of withstanding 456 G's, and their legs need to be able to produce 357,000 newtons worth of force. That's a big number. And if they kick something or hit something at this much force, their body has to be capable of like withstanding the impact, basically, or else they would just, their entire body would just shatter. Or like, what if they hit something at this speed? They're like, an insect hitting a windshield wouldn't even begin to compare. Their body would become one with its surroundings. It would become indistinguishable from the wall, basically, if they hit something at this speed and their body wasn't capable of withstanding it. So like in the Flash's instance, when he hits a van, the van bends, but not him. So if the speedster is capable of withstanding these forces, then their body basically becomes nearly invincible. Not like super duper invincible, but a knife, that's just cute to the speedster at that point. A bullet, pop, pop, pop. Nothing. They basically don't even feel it at that point. Pinpricks, mere pinpricks, because their body's capable of withstanding this. Does that make sense? Like the speedster, like even, again, I'm just using the weaker example here. The speedster's body can take a lot of damage, basically. Also, if the speedster is producing this much force, they'd have to be constantly eating. Like every second of the day, always eating. Otherwise, the second they use their powers, they burn up immediately. And they would need to have a perception capable of keeping up with their increased speed. Otherwise, they'd be basically blind. So of course, they'd have like increased neuron activation speed. Another thing to consider is something I like to call go fast, go boom, or in more sciencey terms, adiabatic compression, which is basically putting stuff into a system without allowing that stuff to leave. Like the most common example, I believe, is a meteor falling towards the Earth. It's not really friction that's causing the meteor to heat up, but more so the meteor compressing air underneath itself, and that compressed air causing the meteor to heat up. When air gets really, really compressed, it starts heating up. So a common example of this is when using a bike pump. Like if you use a bike pump and you keep on pumping it, it will feel hot. Like if you touch the actual outside of the bike pump, it will feel hot. So compressed air causes stuff to heat up. More pressure, heat up, heat, basically. So a meteor travels at about 7 miles a second. And so it's moving so fast that the air underneath it doesn't have enough time to escape its field, right? So I can't really draw, but let's say the circle right here is the meteor, right? It's got a big M underneath it. It lets you know exactly what you're dealing with. And this black line right here is the Earth's atmosphere, so it's entered the Earth. This squiggly right here is the air underneath it, and this is the direction it's traveling. Not really important, but let's say it enters the Earth's atmosphere, and it's got this much air compressed underneath it. So let's say after a few seconds, let's take a snapshot, right? Again, let's take another snapshot. And now it's got this much air compressed underneath it. The reason for this is that this amount of air here didn't have enough time to leave the system. So so the meteor just keeps on compressing the air, and it keeps on becoming more
And so the meteor keeps on compressing air underneath it more and more. And the air underneath it gets more and more compressed, which causes pressure, which causes heat, which causes the meteor to go bye-bye. Right, okay, so I don't think I explained it really well here, but main takeaway of this is just go fast, burn up, basically. And so Speedster's body needs to basically become fireproof so as to not burn up when using their power. Just for a Speedster to be able to use their powers without them just dying immediately, their body has to be capable of withstanding G's many more times than what a normal human can handle. And if they can withstand these G's, it means that normal weapons kind of have no effect on them, and they need to be able to produce that much output as well, so they have to be constantly eating, and their brain needs to be able to keep up with their increase in speed, and they also need to become fireproof or near fireproof, so they become overpowered. Also, as much as the Flash movie is hated upon, an interesting concept that they at least introduced was that the Flash can't move people around willy-nilly just because their bodies aren't capable of withstanding such intense speeds, which, fair, 456 Gs would kill a normal human instantly. But the reason why I bring that up is because this actually makes this makes scenes with civilians much more interesting, because the Flash can't just whisk them away out of danger, and if the bad guy knows that, they can use that against the Flash if they're smart about it. But that's besides the point. All this, scientifically speaking, right, there are a lot of things that need to be accounted for when thinking about super speed. And the biggest problem with super speed that I've already talked about, like basically a broken record at this point, but it truly is that important, is showing them being too overpowered. Like the time in a bottle scenes. Those scenes are very cool. I always love it when those scenes come on because it's just very interesting to see how everything plays out. But if that scene is introduced, then the following villains have to be scaled appropriately. But if those scenes are introduced, it kind of lessens the believability of them being taken down by anything other than a speedster if the villains aren't scaled appropriately. Does that make sense? Now, there are many ways to solve the problems with speedsters, but these are just some of the solutions that I came up with. Is like, number one, have them be weak. Just have them have the speedster be weak, like Dash from The Incredibles. He was a great character, but he wasn't like insanely fast. I'd say he was in the range of like 50 to 100 mile per hour movement, which is still fast, and it still makes him an interesting character, but people could still contend with him, you know what I mean? Like, normal weapons still pose a danger to him. Maybe he would be able to maybe dodge a bullet, but not a full AK mag. Or, like, he could still fall into traps, and people could still chase him if they were smart about it. You see what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Like, he wasn't powerful, but he was still an interesting character. Or, inversely, just have them be completely overpowered. Like, Metro Man from Megamind. He was an overpowered character, but he was still an interesting character. Yes, he wasn't in the movie a lot, but he was still an integral character, and they kept on referencing how powerful he was throughout the entire story. Like in the scene here, of course, he was fast enough to get away without them noticing, but it was fine for the story to happen. Again, believability, right? The audience was fine with allowing that to happen because it was important for the story to continue. Or give them an internal struggle. Think about it, right? How would super speed work? Do you speed up, or does time slow down? Now, that might sound like the same thing, but it isn't. Imagine you could run for as long as you want, but at normal human speed. Like, you could run across the entirety of the United States without being the least bit tired, but at normal human speed. Could you imagine just mindlessly running for that long? You'd probably go insane, right? Now, think about it in speedsters terms. To the outside world, it seems like the speedster is moving very fast. But to the speedster, they're just moving at normal human speed, but just that time has slowed down for them specifically. And now, imagine you couldn't turn that power off at all. Any human interaction would take forever. As Red Rush put it,
my perception is just as fast as I am. The briefest conversation with anyone seems like hours to me.
The forever speedster, as I like to call it. So the crux of the story would be that the speedster is very powerful, but they struggle to fit into normal human society, or another internal conflict of some kind following that nature, if that's better. Or just give them downsides to using their power, like don't let them have instant acceleration. Like, they're capable of moving at super speed, but it takes a while for them to reach that speed. Like they're more like a car and they have to slowly reach that speed. This way they're able to like fall into traps and actually be caught off guard, or let them only be able to use their speed in short bursts. Basically, it takes a lot of energy for them to maintain super speed. So the longer they use it, the more exponentially tired they become. And so they have to constantly be eating to maintain that energy. And if like multiple villains gang up on them, it actually poses a threat to them, you know what I mean? Or make it so that their brain isn't capable of keeping up with their speed. So whenever they move, they basically just become functionally blind. This way, they have to pre-plan where they're moving and be careful in case they accidentally hit something and go splat. To give credit to the Flash, to explain all the stuff that Barry was capable of doing, they just said the Speed Force protected him, which I think is actually fantastic, because this way, so long as you don't hyper-analyze everything like I've been doing, it's fine if he was still alive after using his powers, and it made sense to the show, and they were able to use that later on in the show in different conflicts. Well, did they use those conflicts? Did they use the Speed Force properly? That could be debated, but still, it's a great addition to explain why he's not just after using his powers. Also, I know I'm talking a lot about physics and stuff, but it's fine if the world the Speedster is in doesn't like strictly adhere to physics, because when people like watch stuff, they don't want it to be physics based and all that stuff. It's even better if it's physics based, just because it's even more believable. But so long as it's just believable, it's fine, because people don't want to be thinking about physics when watching entertainment stuff. Like, for example, time travel stuff, right? Like time travel, in strictly speaking, physics based, right, would be impossible, just because anything with mass cannot move past the speed of light, and to achieve time travel, you need to be able to move past the speed of light, which is just impossible. Take the smallest grain of sand and impart a universe's worth of energy into that grain of sand, and it still wouldn't reach the speed of light. It would get really, really close, but it would never pass that barrier, just because that's just impossible. It would break physics as we know it, basically. Back to the point I made much earlier in the video, right? A writer can make anything possible within their world. They can make time travel possible. They can make superpowers possible. But they must stick to the rules that they themselves made. Again, believability is key, right? A great cop-out is like magic in fantasy worlds. Anything can happen, and the writer can just say that it's due to magic. Now, this is a fine strategy as long as you don't use it too much, because if it is used too much, then you kind of start to lose the audience, because if anything can happen, then the stakes just don't mean as much. But on the flip side, a writer doesn't need to explain all the minutiae of the world, just because that restricts the writer too much and it bores the reader. You just need to explain enough so that the reader has a general feel of what's happening in the world. Let's say in a fantasy world, the writer shows that the hero doesn't have enough mana to cast a spell. If the hero does manage to cast a spell, the writer has to provide a reason for that. The hero sacrificed their life force to do it or something. But if the writer does want to go down that avenue, they have to show that consequence actually affect the hero. The hero ages a lot, or they're severely hurt for a long period of time, or something around those lines. Again, the contract between audience and writer, right? The writer basically says, this is the rules of the world. This is why whatever happens, happens. And the audience chooses to believe it. They choose to believe that that is their truth. And they can be invested in the story so long as that truth is consistent. Even if it takes a few curves along the way, the audience is willing to stay with the writer up to a certain point. But once that truth is lost, it's very hard for the reader to be reinvested in the story. Now, this video was basically just me going on a huge rant. So to try and counteract that, I'll be giving some honorable mentions to good speedsters in anime. The fourth Raikage in Naruto. He wasn't unbelievably fast, but still, he was fast. And I think it worked well because it's scaled, right? Like the people he was fighting were also strong. They weren't as fast as him, but they could still follow his movements. In My Hero Academia, we got Ingenium, aka Señorita. Like the basis of this guy's character was that he was fast. Not incredibly fast, but still pretty fast. And they showed him training to get stronger. He wasn't so fast that he broke physics, but he had a really fast engine in his legs. And he was at a school where the basic premise of that school was to make sure he got more powerful. So of course, he'd get faster throughout the show. Next up, we got Speed of Sound of Sonic Crew in One Punch Man. It was believable and funny. Best of both worlds. And whenever he fought somebody other than Saitama, they always showed that he was faster. Even if he wasn't able to beat them, he was able to at least run away. Basically, they kept his powers consistent. And when he was facing Genos, the show already showed that Genos was capable of moving quickly. And before he fought Sonic, Genos got an upgrade. So it made sense that he was able to keep up with Sonic. Kind of, at least. Also, they already showed that Saitama was unbelievably powerful. So of course, Saitama was able to beat Sonic. Oh yeah, speaking of Saitama, dude, a great example of an overpowered character with an internal struggle. And just a great show to watch, honestly. Lastly, we got Shinra from Fire Force. Basically just a rocket, like propelling fire from his legs. And when he was fighting with Sho, it made sense why he was moving that fast. It was because he got a speed boost. Yes, he was moving faster than the speed of light, which... But they explained why using the Adola Burst stuff. It wasn't overused, and when the speed boost ended, he was back to moving at his normal speed. They consistently kept up with how strong that power was. Like, they showed how broken that speed boost was against other run-of-the-mill villains. Like when he got it for like half a second and was able to decimate a strong fire demon. This is exactly how I think it should be done. The writers bended the rules to add some pizzazz to the show. They provided a reason for that bend, which I was completely fine accepting, and the rule that they added, they kept consistent throughout the entire rest of the show. 10 out of 10 execution. But something to keep in mind is that anime is a different medium from some of the other stuff that I've been critiquing, and as such, has stuff baked into it throughout the years that the audience is automatically willing to let go. Like, they don't really explain what the character's powers actually do in like an actual fight. It's more so about the spectacle than all the technical stuff, and with animation, there's just more stuff that you can get away with. Like when Goku's fighting in the Dragon Ball universe, they don't really explain his powers. They just go with the vague, he's very strong. And so anything he does is just like, oh, it's because he's very strong. And they don't really explain it, really. Like, they don't do powers, but they just do overall strength instead. I mean, they do powers, but it just converges towards overall strength instead. Does that make sense?
Basically, to summarize the video, the contract between writer and audience is important. Sonic 3 ain't that bad. I like Invincible. Flash, very inconsistent. Super speed is hard superpower to implement, but there are some things that can be done to implement it and make the story interesting. Super speed is an awesome superpower. Anime got some cool speedsters. Now, as I write this script and subsequently film this video, I am not sure how long this video will be, but based on how long it took me just to film it, I assume that it's pretty long. It did just kind of turn into me ranting about the inconsistency of the Flash, which I apologize for. But hey, if you're watching up to this point, I appreciate it. I really do. Like and subscribe if you feel inclined to do so, and I'll end the video by saying this. I'm an idiot, but I think about 90% of what's been said in this video is valid, and hey, an A is an A, so I'll take it. I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Peace.